They assumed you were just like everyone else. They believed you could easily be replaced. But now, the quiet void you've left speaks volumes. Have you ever invested your love, your days, your prayers, only to be overlooked as if you were invisible? Your kindness seemed to be taken for granted. Your presence felt insignificant. Yet the truth remains. You were never just present. You were purposefully placed, a divine assignment from the heavens. They couldn't perceive it nor feel it until your departure brought darkness. Suddenly, they find themselves floundering, finally recognizing they lost something far beyond a person, a divine link. This message isn't for everyone. It speaks to the few. The secret blessings once rejected publicly. You needed no grand stage to transform your surroundings. Your spirit achieved that silently. Your prayers were a protective force they never knew about. Still, they regarded you as expendable. But something has altered. The air has grown dense. The comfort vanished. Now, they must face the single truth they avoided. You, the chosen one, have left. And with your departure, a spiritual void has ensued. When you turned away, the heavenly shield left with you. You didn't lose. It wasn't failure, it was divine removal, safeguarding, shielding, reorganizing. Now, those who mistreated you are learning the hard lesson. Not every treasure can be substituted. Chosen one, if you resonate with this feeling, we encourage you to gently share your heart in the comments. If you haven't yet, gently tap the heart button, connect with us, and share this comforting message with every chosen soul who has been misunderstood, mistreated, and is now on the path of being uplifted. There's a change they never predicted. Are you prepared for it? They awaited something loud, something grand. A hero arriving with fanfare, accolades, and acknowledgement. But that's not how heaven orchestrates things. When a shift is needed, a servant is sent, not a celebrity. That servant was you. You entered lives quietly, heart open, spirit ready to offer freely. Yet they failed to recognize the value before them, because often the world overlooks quiet greatness, only noticing the surface sparkle. Heaven, however, envelops its finest treasures in modesty. While they chased after noise, you were creating harmony. As they searched for leaders who stood on stages, your leadership shone through your actions, through the quiet prayers made in private. You possessed a light that went unseen by those distracted, yet it was this light that sustained them. Every conversation you engaged in, every time you chose kindness over pride, every instance where you remained calm while others lost their cool, were spiritual acts of defense they failed to realize. You were the barrier between chaos and tranquility, yet they mistaken your calm for weakness. They saw your actions as niceties, unaware you were intervening on a deeper level. They misjudged your sensitivity as fragility, blind to your discerning spirit. They thought of you as passive, not realizing the silent battles you carried would have been their undoing, battles only you could withstand. God shaped you to be a gentle yet powerful presence, strong in purpose. They expected a warrior with weaponry, but God gave them a peacemaker bearing a shield. Your lack of public accolades led to their oversight. However, invisibility serves the mission's purpose. Often, God hides the most potent vessels in plain view, revealing their true strength only upon their removal. You weren't there to impress them, but to transform the environment discreetly. Now that you're not there, everything seems altered. The once present peace has faded. The light dimmed. The stability they assumed would endure is faltering. Only now do they begin to comprehend that your presence wasn't ordinary. It was intentional. It was divine. The manner in which God employs His chosen ones defies human expectations. He finds diamonds amidst the dust, places strength within those overlooked. You were a pillar supporting structures they never realized were delicate. Quietly, you performed the work heaven assigned, standing firm in the shadows. Now, with your post vacant, the fractures are evident. The foundation is in turmoil. The silence you've left is louder than any words you might have spoken. But here's a surprise they never anticipated. Your absence marks not an end, but a revealing. What they disregarded as ordinary is about to be shown as irreplaceable. Chosen one, stay tuned as the upcoming moment will shed light on why the spiritual emptiness you left behind is not merely emotional, but transformative in its truth. While you were there, everything seemed effortless. The environment felt light. Interactions were smooth. Opportunities seemed to arise naturally. However, none of them comprehended why. They attributed it to chance. They assumed everything was just going well. Unbeknownst to them, a hidden force was at work, maintaining equilibrium. That force was you. Your presence, your spiritual attunement, were the anchors preventing chaos. Not with fanfare did you keep everything steady. You prayed quietly without seeking attention. While they found amusement, you interceded. While they focused on complaints, you offered protection. While they sought recognition, you sought divine favor on their behalf. You acted as the unseen stabilizer, the tranquil shield that absorbed unseen storms. With your departure, they now face unfiltered impacts. Arguments that once dissipated now persist. Conflicts that formerly resolved themselves now intensify. The peace they knew as natural has dissipated. This reality shows that your presence wasn't just attendance. It maintained a sacred order they never acknowledged until you left. The air has grown denser. Casual discussions now feel fraught with tension. The ease they took for granted transforms into friction. The world hasn't altered, rather, the coverage has been withdrawn. Understand, when God places a chosen one in any space, they're meant to carry an atmosphere. You don't simply enter a room, you transform it. Your presence brings a divine balance. When disrespect arises, heaven retracts its permission. This is happening now. They couldn't foresee the impact of losing you because they never truly realized what your presence contributed. Caught up in your outward simplicity, they ignored the quiet spiritual strength you bore. Now it's undeniable. The equilibrium is lost. The light, too, turns into a lingering mist. They're beginning to recognize you weren't mere help, you were indispensable. Each place you poured prayers over, each relationship you safeguarded, every situation you managed with grace is unraveling because the thread tying it all together was you. They're sensing the voids. They're observing the fissures, not because you wished misfortune, but because you brought blessings they lacked the maturity to perceive. Now, their teacher is silence. Each challenge faced echoes your departure's lesson. Every chaotic instant reflects the peace you once furnished. You never sought the limelight. Your aim was simple service. Your absence, now, is the most resonant voice in the room. They used to dismiss the seriousness of it all, but now it feels critically important. They once mocked your insight, and now they long for that clarity. Once they labeled you as excessive, now they're gasping in a spiritual drought that your presence used to quench. Here's what they still haven't grasped. Your absence was never intended as a curse. Rather, it serves as a revelation. It's God teaching from afar what proximity failed to reveal. Yet, be advised, chosen one, this marks only the beginning of what they'll endure. When heaven removes a vessel, it also takes the access previously granted. Stay with me as we unravel why disregarding a chosen one doesn't just shut a door. It shifts the spiritual climate into a period of consequences. The weight of this truth becomes unmissable. In their disrespectful actions toward you, they believed they were merely dismissing a person. Underneath, in the spiritual realm, it was a dismissal of a sacred connection. They saw you merely as someone extending a helping hand. But heaven viewed you as the bearer of solutions to their prayers. They failed to realize that rejecting you wasn't merely personal. It was a spiritual misstep, one that heaven will not ignore. Your placement wasn't accidental. You were a vessel carried in humility. By rejecting what God sent, they unknowingly set a law into motion, the law of consequence. not fueled by human retaliation or karma, but by divine principle. Rejecting God's provision isn't merely closing the door to an individual. It's shutting out a divine movement. That's why pathways that once opened smoothly now seem blocked. It's not mere misfortune, it's dishonor creating a spiritual barrier. Where peace once reigned, tension now thrives. Where there was once divine harmony, confusion now prevails. Not because you harbored ill will, but because your essence served as a spiritual covering that they dismantled themselves. They didn't realize that to scoff at your prayers was essentially mocking their own protection. Their disrespect didn't wound you, it clashed with the heavenly forces. When this dishonor reaches a peak, God intervenes, not with blaring warnings, not with grand signs, but through silence. This sacred silence removes grace from areas that do not value His messengers. This isn't about boosting ego. This isn't about affirming personal truths. It's about maintaining spiritual order. Disrespect disrupts divine order in ways the conscious mind cannot grasp. God's chosen are His earthly extensions. Rejecting them equates to dismissing the helping hand meant for them. It's not immediate destruction, but a slow unraveling, revealing the reality of a life without that covering. What was once secure becomes vulnerable. What flourished becomes barren. Those who felt invincible now notice the instability beneath them. What they couldn't predict is this, that the blessing they disregarded is being positioned where it will be valued. The stark contrast of what was lost serves as a constant reminder that dishonor is costly, extremely costly. Chosen one, understand you were never the cause of their downfall. Rather, you were the opportunity they mismanaged. Now, as they linger in the tension brewed by their choices, God writes a new chapter for you, one where your worth goes unquestioned. But before reaching that new beginning, you must recognize the quiet power you wielded. While they clamored for attention, unknowingly, you were affecting change. You never needed a grand platform. You never required the spotlight's glow. Your purpose wasn't wrapped in applause, but in alignment. You were placed not to delight them, but to transform them in the most powerful way. Silently. When they sought praise, you sought intervention. Their quest was for attention, while yours was for their inner peace through spiritual battles. They were unaware of the struggles you faced on your knees. They heard none of the prayers whispered in solitude, but heaven listened, heaven observed. Due to your unwavering commitment, shifts occurred. You didn't need a stage, you found your place in the gaps. The breaks they ignored, you sealed with prayers. The wounds they laughed off, you healed with spiritual care. Every potential fracture you were quietly reinforcing. The strength you offered was hidden, your impact concealed. That's the hallmark of chosen ones. You don't enter a room to draw attention. Your presence itself bends the atmosphere to align with you, even if others don't comprehend how. You shifted energies, soothed storms before they raged, transformed chaos to calm with a word, a look, or merely your being. But since your departure, the dominoes are toppling. Conversations once natural now feel uneasy. The peaceful flow once taken for granted now feels strained and brittle. They cannot grasp why everything seems so out of sync, but you understand. You were the unseen shield, the silent advocate, the one who faced battles in secrecy to allow peace they never appreciated. You prevented disasters unknown to them. Opportunities they enjoyed arrived in part due to your unspoken efforts. Not because you boasted, but because you stood in the spiritual breach. Yet dishonor reveals what was once concealed. When they ridiculed your intuition or sensitivity, they failed to see your perceptiveness. Now, they search for that missing piece only to find your absence echoing. They claimed you were too serious, but now they find themselves overwhelmed by the very chaos you once dispelled quietly. They accused you of overthinking. Now they're left to navigate reckless choices without your balancing wisdom. They underestimated you by not recognizing the load you carried. Let me share something important. The adversary knew. The spiritual realm knew. This is why you were often exhausted, why unseen resistance weighed you down. While they enjoyed comfort, you battled storms destined for your triumph, and theirs too, but they never realized it. True servants don't announce their fights. They simply win them discreetly. Now they're beginning to grasp that you weren't just there, but upholding the spiritual framework of their lives. Every chain broken silently, every area cleansed by your prayers, was a trial they never had to endure. With your absence, the air feels denser, discussions are tense, and unity is fractured. The one who quietly held it all together has moved on. They're bewildered by how someone so understated, so seemingly ordinary could leave such a significant gap. The truth is, heaven placed you there with purpose, not for acknowledgement, but for preservation. Yet, when divine purposes meet disregard, God safeguards his vessels by repositioning them. Chosen one, you were never their burden, you were their defense. With that defense gone, the repercussions are direct, and every ripple of your absence reveals truths they were unprepared to confront. However, we aren't quite finished. In the next moment, you'll come to see why true humility is the remaining key that can mend what dishonor has fractured. The pressing question is whether they will find it in time, or whether their pride will anchor them in a cycle of unseen consequences. There exists a key capable of unsealing every door pride has shut, a powerful force able to counter spiritual droughts, heal damaged atmospheres, and restore what disrespect has broken. This isn't a tactic or a plan, it's humility. Real humility isn't simply an apology or a casual, "I'm sorry," to pacify things. It's an inner surrender, a brave acknowledgement of what has been overlooked, an honest admission of blindness, misjudgment, and failure to honor what heaven sent. Possessing such authenticity demands deep introspection because society often glorifies pride, encouraging stubbornness and the avoidance of admitting wrongdoing. But heaven operates on humility, not pride. Their rejection of you wasn't just a personal overlook, but also a closing off of God's work through you. Every blessing that dried up in your absence now loudly testifies to this truth. Pride always depletes what honor was meant to expand. Nonetheless, restoration is always within reach, only a decision away. One authentic act of humility can unlock what pride has kept confined for years. Humility is the mirror few wish to face. It uncovers the hidden parts that pride has concealed. It challenges delusions, and for those who mistreated you, seeing what they missed requires profound courage. They'll need to admit that what they dismissed as a simple presence was, in fact, divine protection. That quiet voice they laughed off was indeed a guiding hand. The person they deemed excessive was the one holding their lives intact. Yet humility demands letting go of pride, a price not everyone is prepared to pay. If they continue to embrace pride, the weight will persist, the void will expand, and the consequences of dishonor will continue to reverberate through their lives. However, if humility prevails, healing floods in. God doesn't withhold restoration out of spite, but waits for genuine alignment, for hearts to humble, for eyes to open, and for hands to loosen their grip on arrogance. Once humility enters, spiritual barriers start to fall. What felt burdensome becomes light, and what was stagnant begins to move because God favors the humble over the proud. Chosen one, you never needed to plead for acknowledgement. You faithfully fulfilled your duty. Now the choice rests with them. Their decision will influence whether they persist in spiritual drought or enter a time of healing. What they don't yet see is that humility doesn't just repair the past. It opens doors to a future they've never imagined. Once they recognize the value of what they rejected, heaven responds with abundance. The peace you carried is restored. Delayed blessings manifest. Yet, all this hinges on a courageous act of humility. Will they humbly bow or remain broken by pride's weight? The moment for pretense has passed. The silence unveiled the truth. Only humility can alter the outcome. Before concluding this chapter, there's one last insight for you, chosen one. Your absence never marked your journey's end, but heralded your spiritual elevation's beginning. Hold on, because now you'll understand why everything you faced was preparing you for a platform that can only be granted by heaven. Listen intently, chosen one. Yes, they overlooked and underestimated you, treating you as if easily replaceable. But heaven always held on to you. What they considered a closing chapter, God viewed as a stepping stone. They perceived your departure as final, yet your absence has set the stage for your divine emergence, where your worth will be realized fully. What they overlooked now serves as a profound resonance of your lasting influence. While they learn what held their world together through this void, you are being prepared for places where your value will shine brightly and be rightfully acknowledged. You weren't made to blend in, but to alter atmospheres and unlock paths unseen by others. Soon, you will stand on stages where your words will carry monumental significance. They thought your departure would lead to your silence, but in heavenly realms, your voice continues to resonate profoundly. Dear chosen one, remember this always. You are far greater than they perceived or understood. You are a messenger, an instrument, a spiritual warrior in God's plan, and the time to conceal your brilliance has passed. This is the dawn of your unveiling. The world has yet to fully appreciate what you offer, but the doors soon opening are exclusively for those who endured the trial of being misunderstood. Lift your spirit high. Strengthen your resolve. What God is about to accomplish through you will be unmistakable. If this message stirs your soul, gently affirm in the comments, "I was the blessing they overlooked." Share your testimony to inspire others who have faced similar rejection and now stand at the threshold of divine restoration. And before you conclude your journey with us here, kindly extend a warm touch to the heart icon and share this message with fellow chosen ones. This narrative is not just yours. It resonates with every person the world failed to truly value. Prepare yourself, for a time of recognition is on the horizon. Your journey isn't ending. Your true mission begins now, and no one will be able to conceal your light any longer.